Hi everybody, welcome to another webinar. Today's webinar will be on trainers and assessors, skills and qualifications. So I have some slides that I will be uploading that we'll access soon. Oops, open. Okay, so we'll just bring those online now. Okay. So as stated, today's webinar is on trainers and assessors and individuals working under the supervision of a trainer. This is an area where there are a lot of non-compliances at audit. We see this time and time again. In particular is not having sufficient staff matrix or having those systems and practices in place to ensure that the staff files are organised in an organised manner. Okay. So as per usual, this webinar forms part of your continuous improvement process under Standard 2.2. So you should be holding a Q&C meeting following or during this webinar where you can set up your minutes for this month's continuous improvement cycle. So the continuous improvement cycle for this month is Standards 1.13 and to 1.20. So within your Q&C meeting. As per the policies and procedures for continuous improvement, you should undertake a review of the policies and procedures to ensure that they are actually in line with what you are actually doing within your organisation. So we have those policies and procedures in place for you that you can use, but you need to ensure that it's actually in line with what you are actually doing in practice within your organisation. You should also review the documentation that go with that. And we're going to be having a look at a few documents today in today's session. Okay, so today's standards are 1.13, we'll be doing 1.13 to 1.20. I'm going to focus firstly on 1.13 to 1.16. 1.13 to 16 is all about your trainers and assessors and the qualifications that they hold and the relevant industry experience that they have, or vocational experience is also known as. So you see in the standards they talk about vocational experience. You'll also notice in standard 1.14 and 1.15 there are two clauses that are now no longer relevant. So you'll see it says prior to 1 January, they have now been removed and they're no longer relevant. So there's actually been a couple of changes due to that. We're updating our policies and procedures as we speak right now in the Q&C manual to reflect these changes, but we've already updated a couple of forms to reflect these changes as well. So I'll go through those today with you. Okay, so 1.13 to 1.16 actually goes through vocational competencies. So this relates to your staff matrix and what needs to be on your staff matrix for trainers and assessors. Now, the staff matrix should be completed by your trainer and assessor as part of the recruitment process. So when you recruit a new trainer assessor, they should complete a staff matrix as part of that recruitment process. So when we look at vocational competencies, some people can get confused. What is a vocational competency? So vocation is the vocation that they work in, so the industry that they work in. And a vocational competency is the qualification or experience that maps over to the qualification that they'll be delivering. So in the vocation, your trainers and assessors should hold the current qualification in the area that they're going to be delivering training and assessment in, or demonstrate equivalent industry skills and knowledge within that area. So to have a suitably qualified or experienced trainer assessor and to meet the sufficiency, so when we look at the rules of evidence and principles of assessment, sufficiency is one of the things that comes up with sufficient evidence. Sufficiency also comes under trainers and assessors, and what sufficient skills and knowledge do they hold to actually enable them to be able to deliver training and assessment in the first place. So in order for a trainer or assessor to have sufficient skills and knowledge, they must have sufficient industry experience and skills and knowledge. Now, it's better if they have, the more experience they have, the better your trainer is going to be. And I also find that it's better if you've got a trainer assessor who's totally passionate about their industry. When I had my RTO, I hired trainers and assessors who not necessarily had the qualifications in training and assessment, but they had a passion for their industry. And that would come through in the interview process, so when I interviewed them. And that passion is they absolutely love the industry that they work in, and they really want to make an impact and a change in that industry by delivering quality training. And as I said, they may not actually have any experience whatsoever in delivering training and assessment, but they have a passion for their industry. And the other thing is that they hold the current industry skills and knowledge in that area. So in particular, when you're mapping with a staff matrix, it is easier if they actually hold the current qualification and they actually have the exact same units of competencies that they will be delivering and assessing in. And the reason why, if they actually hold the current qualification and the units of competency, when you map it in a staff matrix, it's easy. You don't have to map to every unit, you just map to the full qualification. If they don't have the exact qualification, so they might have a higher qualification, or so i.e. they might have a bachelor degree or a higher ed qualification, or they might have a qualification that is similar but not the same and the units aren't the same. They must, if they can have that, that's not a problem, but they must be able to demonstrate that they have the skills and knowledge down to the unit level. You cannot have a trainer or assessor who has a qualification below. So for example, if you're going to be delivering a diploma in leadership and management and a trainer or assessor has a Cert 4 in business or small business management or something like that, they don't hold the qualification above, so you won't be able to map it above. So you can map the sufficient units that they have against the unit of competency for the diploma level, but you also have to map in all the skills and knowledge that they have at that level. Now, just because they hold a qualification below doesn't mean that they cannot be a trainer or assessor delivering a diploma in business or leadership and management. If they hold a qualification below, they're highly likely, if you're hiring them, they should have the required skills and knowledge at that level for the diploma level or above. So for a diploma of leadership and management, I would expect that a trainer or assessor delivering that qualification would have management skills or supervision skills, manage projects, manage teams, they'd have that sort of experience so that they could deliver the diploma in leadership and management level. But they might have a certificate 4 level that doesn't map up, but they might have developed skills and knowledge or non-accredited training up to that diploma level. So you can map all of that up to there. So the best way to do it is in the staff matrix is if they hold the current qual and the same units of competency, all you've got to do is map the skills and knowledge. If they don't have it, you've got to map to the unit level. So they could have equivalent skills and knowledge, but that must be mapped to the unit level. Okay. So the next one is current skills and knowledge. So they've got to have currency in their industry. I see this time and time again, particularly training organisations that have been running for a long time. You get what are called career trainers, and basically all they do is they train and assess, and that's all they do. They haven't actually kept their currency within their industry. So they don't. So one example I can give you is I had a training organisation that I was working with. They were a trade school, so they delivered a lot of trade qualifications, and the trainers and assessors had been delivering, they've been a trainer assessor delivering those trade skills for a long time. So they had come, so they had, in this particular incidence, these trainers had gained their qualifications in the late 80s, early 90s, had done some trade skills, but had been training for the last 20 years. They wouldn't have any currency in the industry. It would be very hard for them to demonstrate currency in the industry. So you need to have currency, as in particularly trade skills. You could imagine how many things have changed on a work site in 20 years. There's some amazing things that have happened, technology, new equipment, different things that have come in. Just the way the trades work together is very different as well. So they need to get currency of what it's like to work on a work site and be involved in that area. Now, the argument I get here is, well, they've kept up their currency by going to professional development, or they've gone to seminars or workshops and things like that. Do they have currency in the work site of what it's like to work with other trades? So that's the thing that I would be looking at. So your trainer assessor should have current industry skills and knowledge. And what's not written anywhere, and you will not find it written anywhere, is that it must be a minimum of 3 years industry experience within the last 3 years. So they might have 20 years industry experience, but they did it 10 years ago. That's not current. If they have 20 years industry experience and they did it within the last 2 years or 3 years, then that's current. So that's what the auditors deem as current, and that's what they look at as sufficiency. But it's not written anywhere. You're not going to find it written anywhere. It doesn't state it in the standards. This is what I've learned personally through going to audit, and this is what they're looking for. I also believe in that as well. I agree with that. I think trainers and assessors should keep current within their industry, and it could be volunteer work, or it could be they go do some work placement in between. Some industries where it's really good, they do keep their currency as business trainers because they're running their own business normally to be a trainer assessor. The other one is hospitality industry. They tend to work part-time delivering training in hospitality and will still keep their hand in working in a bar or in a restaurant or something like that. So, and there's no rules around what is that sufficiency, but as long as they're getting, like, I wouldn't say 1 hour a year would be sufficient. So it would be sufficient where they're running a shift and that they're able to gain that skills and knowledge to ensure currency, in particular with technology and equipment that would be in that workplace. So for example, if a trainer who is delivering Certificate 3 in early childhood care, they should have, and it might be a unit that they're delivering is provide care for babies and toddlers, that trainer or assessor should have current industry experience within the last 3 and a minimum of 3 years. So they can't have worked in a childcare centre for 2 years, and that would be sufficient. It should be a minimum of 3 years of working in a childcare centre or a regulated care facility. So they should have worked, so it could be family daycare or a childcare facility. And this doesn't mean that you've changed nappies of your own child. That doesn't count. It's very different when you work in a regulated care compared to looking after your own children. So it's got to be currency, and this is actually stipulated in the companion guide for this qualification. And those companion guides can help you out with stipulating what these areas are. So it's currency in a regulated care environment. And when you look at the unit of competency for provide care for babies and toddlers, it actually addresses that and says that they must be able to change nappies, they've got to supervise others looking after children, there's specific requirements that they've got to meet, feeding babies and toddlers and things like that, and looking at the developmental side of them. So on your staff matrix, you need to put all this information in there. You need to think of a staff matrix like a really glorified resume. You can cut and paste stuff from your resume, that's not a problem. Trainers and assessors should do that, but it actually goes into more detail than most resumes would go into. Go into what did you actually do? Where did you work? What was your position? And against the unit of competency, what skills and knowledge do you have that directly relates to that unit of competency? As I said before, if they hold the current qual, you only have to map it across with the current units, with the exact same units. You only have to map across to the full qual. But you should demonstrate, the trainer or assessor should demonstrate their currency and their current skills and knowledge against those unit of competencies or the qualification. So they should have, in the matrix, they should map across their current skills and knowledge and within the last 3 years. So within the last 3 years and at least 3 years industry experience. And this is very, very important. If you have a really good staff matrix, and this should be something that your trainers and assessors update on a yearly basis when you do an annual performance review to ensure that it's kept current and up to date. So at any time you have an audit, that's kept up to date. But it's not just for an audit tool. This staff matrix is actually for you to look at your currency and looking at, you might want to put another qualification on your scope, and you might have trainers and assessors who can map they've got skills and knowledge that map across to other units within another qualification. So your staff matrix is a document you could go to check, hey, do we actually have any trainers and assessors currently on our books that we can map across to this new qualification that we might want to put on our scope of registration? There's a lot of reasons why you have a staff matrix. It's not just for audit purposes. It's actually to ensure that your trainers and assessors are keeping up and are current within their industry skills and knowledge within their industry. Okay, So there's been a major change that's happened this week. The training and assessment qualification, you haven't heard, your head's been in the ground, and you haven't heard, there's a new TAE that's just been released. So TAE 40116, don't freak out. It doesn't mean you have to go get this qualification right now, but you will need to transition across within the next 12 months. The key is, if you hold the TAE 40110, you'll only need to ensure that you've got those 2 additional units, which are these 2 identified here. So the 2 additional units are TAE LLN 411, which we knew was coming. We knew this was going to change into a core, so it's finally happened, and that's addressing adult language literacy and numeracy skills. Most trainers and assessors, and we've been advising this for quite a while, should have already done that as a PD, and they should have that extra unit. If you've got that unit, awesome, you don't have to worry, you don't have to do it again, and you don't have to do the full qual again, you've got that unit. Now, you'll also need the TAE ASS 502, which is the assessment unit, design and develop assessment tools. That's now become a core, so you'll need to now get that unit. If you didn't have it previously, because it wasn't a core before, some RTOs had it as a single unit that you could do as PD, or if you've done the diploma level, you may have done that, and they would have maybe had that as an elective in the TAE. If you haven't got that, you'll need to now upgrade to that. So one of the things that I recommend, you'll need to get the TAE 40116. If you have the old qual, you've got the TAE LLN 411, and you've got the TAE ASS 502. So if you've got those 2 units, you could go to an RTO and get RPL, because they're direct equivalents, those units. There's nothing brand new there. And there's now an elective in there as well. So they should hold that, and you need to transition. All your trainers and assessors will need to transition across to the new qualification within the next 12 months. Actually, and I have heard a rumour that this is being extended out to 2 years. You'll have to have a look. We'll be looking at TGA to see what these changes, how they're going to be impacted on the RTOs that have these quals on their scope. Highly likely that the standards are going to change to reflect these new requirements. This hasn't happened yet. We looked at those standards already there. There's a couple of standards that have been removed, and the standards actually state that your trainers and assessors must hold the current qualification in training and assessment. So this is the current one, or transition across. So I'd highly recommend you get your trainers and assessors out. They need to go get RPL and transition across. If they haven't got those 2 units, they'll need to complete those 2 units and then upgrade to the new qualification. So you need to get that out to all your trainers and assessors now. You've got 12 months to transition. You should minute this at your meeting and discuss it at your quality and compliance meeting, and have a plan in place on how you're going to transition all your trainers and assessors over to the new TAE 40116. As an RTO, you're not required to pay for the upgrade for the trainers and assessors. That is their responsibility to do that. By all means, if you wish to, you can do that. You can upgrade all your trainers' skills and quals if you wanted to. On the right-hand side here is the new packaging rules for this qualification. I'm sure you're going to hear lots more about this in the next coming weeks. LinkedIn's going off about it. There's lots of comments going on there about the new TAE. So if you're not on LinkedIn, I recommend you get on there and have a look at some of the groups that are in there. There's some great groups in there. You can connect on my LinkedIn profile and connect with me. By all means, I want all of my clients to connect with me on LinkedIn, and you'll see what groups that I'm in, and I highly recommend you get into those groups on LinkedIn. Okay, now if you have an assessor only, that is an assessor who assesses only. They don't do any training and assessment. They're just doing assessing only. They should hold the skill set, the assessor skill set, which are these 4 units: plan assessment activities, assess competence, participate in assessment validation, and develop, design and develop assessment tools. So there's another, if you have assessors only who don't hold the full qual, so they can hold the full qual. If you have assessors who are just assessing only, they can hold the full qual, and they'll have to meet the requirements of that previous qualification, and they'll have to upgrade to TAE 40116 as well. If they're assessor only, they're going to have to upgrade this single unit over to be able to do the assessment side. So that's assessors only. Okay, When you have your trainers and assessors on board, you should be verifying their suitability as a trainer assessor. And that is verifying the qualifications and the certificates that they have are actually real. Because time and time again, I've been to audits where I've actually seen qualifications that have been fraudulently changed. And these are trainers and assessors who are going to work for RTOs where I've seen that they've fraudulently changed their qualifications. So this happens all the time. So you need to be onto it and keep checking. So this is one of the things, qualification certificates. You should also be verifying their experience in both the vet and vocational sector, so their qualification in TAE and also in the industry sector that they're delivering training and assessment. So you should be verifying the resume, ringing the referees, checking the position descriptions, and going through and checking through that within their documentation. You should also verify their professional development that they've undertaken, so workshops, conferences, webinars, things like that. And the way you can verify professional development is actually check that the place where they did their professional development is actually an organisation and they do actually do professional development and they do these. So I'm sure we're going to get people who are going to ring us to verify our RTO compliance workshop and our assessment validation workshop is real and that the students actually attended those workshops. So we'll have that on our records and our database. Also verify that they are actually part of an association or network. We had someone recently who submitted a staff matrix, and on their staff matrix they stated that they were a member of Vivacity, and they were not a member of Vivacity, and we notified them that they were not a member of Vivacity. So you should be checking, are they actually members of these networks and associations? So there are a few ways you can verify. Go on to training.gov.au and actually check the RTO is on training.gov.au, that their registration is current or it was current at the time the certificate was issued, and that they actually hold the qualification or certificate or units of competencies on their STOPA registration at the time when the certificate was issued. So you should be verifying. This is normally what I do when I scratch the surface when I'm looking at whether qualifications are current and are verifying them when in audit, when I go to audit. You'll also be able to, in the future, check usi.gov.au. If you haven't yet, you should be, and you, as an RTO, you have access to usi.gov.au. You should be getting access to all of your trainers and assessors USI code on usi.gov.au, and they should be giving you access to be able to see their qualifications. So you should be able to go on to usi.gov.au and actually verify your trainers and assessors qualifications on usi.gov.au. There's videos on usi.gov.au on how to do that. So go online to usi.gov.au to see how to do that. Contact referees, as I said, cite the originals. If you can, always cite the originals. I prefer if you've cited the originals and you can actually see whether it's been photocopied, whited out or anything like that, and then obtain a certified copy. So trainer assessor might provide you with one, you cite the original and you get a certified copy, or you get someone within your RTO to certify a copy as true and correct copy. It doesn't have to be a JP, it just has to be someone within your organisation who has cited the original, and you get a stamp that says cited the original copy, you sign it and date it when you actually cited it. Check the websites for PD and call the association or network or verify those associations that they've said that they're part of. Okay, staff matrix. Our staff matrix template was updated this month on Unicorn, so you need to go online and onto Unicorn and download the new staff matrix. We've made some changes with those superseded clauses. We've taken out all references to the superseded clauses, and we've also now got a process for verification of those qualifications for TAE and the vocational side. And you should also make sure that the policies, we're updating, I said this before, we're updating the policy and procedure for these standards currently, and there will be a new Q&C manual that will be released soon that will have those new, how we're going to verify those trainer assessors qualifications, but also those new changes with the clauses that have changed. Now, I'm just going to show you the staff matrix. So I've got the updated staff matrix so you can see what that looks like. So this is the new staff matrix that we've just released last month. So you'll see, or this month in April we released it. So what we've done is you'll see in the staff matrix, this is pretty much stayed the same. It's page that's changed a little bit. So on this page, we've now included a verification of qualification. I think this was in there, but we've actually changed this a little bit. We've now got what was the method of verification, like did you go onto tga.gov.au, did you ring the employer, how did you check that they actually hold the current qualification? So these are the skill sets that they need to hold for a trainer assessor, and also the Cert 4. And this will have to be updated too now, so we've got to put the TAE 40116, so I'll update that today as well. So I'll put that in there. So you should, what was the method of verification? You should sign it that you did verify and the date that you did it, and that a copy has been placed on the file. So you can just click on this to say that a copy was placed. No, that's not working. So anyway, you can put a tick box in there. Okay, so that one is the TAE qualification. The next one, this is new. We've now separated this. It used to be in with this section. So we've now separated the vocational competence. So these are the qualifications that they are delivering. So that if they are delivering Certificate 3 in Early Childhood Education and Care, you should put this. So this is an example row here of how to do it. So you should put the qual in. Where did they get it? What was the RTO name? What date was the certificate issued? What was your method of verification? So was it through the RTO? Was it through TGA? Was it through USI? So we've got a mapping down here on that. So I'm just adding here, so this will be updated today, verified on usi.gov.au. Sign it and date it. So you should put that on the file as well. So this is someone within your RTO should fill this in, and your trainer assessor should fill in this side on the other side. Experience and qualification mapping. So this is their experience. We're actually mapping their experience, skills and knowledge to that qualification. So it should go across to the unit of competency. So you should put the unit in here, and then what is their relevant experience against that unit of competency. So where did they work? How long did they work there for? What was their position? And what type of work did they do there? What were their responsibilities? Now, this is quite brief on here. I would want a lot more information in here, that you actually changed nappies. What was your role in there? Did you supervise other staff members? What did the trainer assessor do within that unit of competency for provide care for children? And then if there's any relevant qualification that maps across, so that should map across with up here. So this is where you verify it. And down here is where you put the qualification that they actually completed that maps across to that unit of competency. So you should put all the quals in here first, get it verified, and then down here you're going to actually put the qualification that maps across to that unit of competency. So that's the staff matrix, and that it should be what the trainer assessor should be filling in when you employ them. And then this section here that I'm just shading, that's going to be completed by the RTO. So everything in the shaded section should be completed by the RTO. And that's why I'm just changing that now, so that we've got that in there. So you know that that's to be completed by the RTO, that side of it there. Okay, so that's the staff matrix. Just try and get back to our screen. Okay, right, okay. So we'll just get back to our PowerPoint here. Okay, so that's staff matrix. All right, when you are putting all of this together, you should also have a staff file put together. So for every trainer assessor that you have in place, you should have a staff file in place. In that staff file, you should have specific documents. Now, I've just cut and pasted from the policy and procedure in here. What are those documents? As I said before, you should be citing originals of these certificates, and you should have a stamp that says original cited or certified as true and correct copy, or you get a JP to sign it that they've certified that they've seen the true and correct copy as well. Every trainer assessor must complete a staff matrix, and it is in the policies and procedures, it is part of the recruitment process, and you should verify those qualifications and the skills and knowledge that they've put in there, and that they're actually real, and that your trainer assessor isn't making up stuff. Because, you know, no one brags on their resume and just elaborates a little bit about their skills and knowledge on their resume, do they? So make sure that you check your trainers and assessors' resume and actually verify it. Did they actually have that skills and knowledge? and who did they work for, ring their referees to make sure that they actually did have gained that skills and knowledge on the workplace. Senior management is to confirm and validate the authenticity of those qualifications. So they should be checking that. You should be doing a professional development plan and conducting annual performance reviews. So we have a professional development plan. I'm going to have a look at that today as well. And we also have a schedule that you should be completing. And all newly engaged trainers and assessors should complete an induction. There is a PowerPoint that we have on Unicorn that you should be using for inducting your trainers and assessors. That includes key information about your RTO. You should be customizing that to your RTO, adding information. You've got your core information that relates to the trainer and assessor policy and procedure manual, but you should also have some key information about your organisation. So when you recruit a new staff member, you should complete a recruitment checklist. You should have a contract of employment on the file and it should be signed. Now, if you are a director or CEO of the organisation, as well as being a trainer or assessor, you do not need a contract of employment. This is only for contracted employees, not people who are directors of the RTO. So you only need a contract of employment for employees. You should have a signed position description. This is by everybody. So whether you're a director or not, you should all sign a position description for the trainer assessor position. We've also got other position descriptions in there for CEO and RTO managers and things like that. They should have completed a staff file form and that should be placed on the file. You should have a current and up-to-date resume and they should update their resume on an annual basis whenever you're doing performance reviews. Part of the performance review process is they should bring an updated resume with them when they come to the performance review. They should update their staff matrix every year as well, and that should be placed on the trainer's file. Training and vet qualification certified copies should be placed on the file. The PD plan and schedule should be placed on there. If you have working with children check as a requirement, so if you have a trainer or assessor who's delivering, for example, Certificate 3 in early childhood care, they should be doing a police working with children check. If you intend or have students under the age of 18, your trainer or assessor should also undertake a working with children check. So if the trainer is going to be coming into contact with any students or children that might be, they're working in a childcare centre, they should complete a working with children check and that should be on the file. If they're in an industry that requires a police record check, so for example, security officers, they're required to undertake a police record check. Your trainer or assessor who's delivering security should also have a completed police record check on their file as well. Childcare is the same, aged care is the same. If they're a permanent staff member, you should have a super form on file, same with tax deck. Okay, so professional development. All trainers and assessors should undertake professional development in both the vocational sector, so their industry that they're delivering training assessment to, and in training and assessment. And they should be able to demonstrate their currency in the industry by undertaking professional development. They should have a PD plan that's completed at least once a year and updated and put on their file, and a PD schedule. I'm going to go through those in a sec. And the way that they can demonstrate that they've kept current with their professional development, this is actually a requirement of one of the standards that they must undertake professional development on an annual basis. They can join a vet network, so Vivacity has a membership network, there's VELG that has a membership network, there's another one called Transnet, they're particularly for the transport industry, there's HTAN, the Hunter Trainers and Assessors Network, there's a few networks that they could join. They can also demonstrate currency by attending workshops, webinars like these, going to conferences, talking about conferences. We have 6 weeks left until our conference comes along. We're so excited. We've got our conference in 6 weeks, so get your registration in. So the Vivacity conference is an example of a conference they could attend. Updating their qualifications, so TAE, for example, so upgrading to the new qualification in TAE is another way they can demonstrate professional development. Undertaking work experience, so getting some currency in the industry and doing some work experience. I had an example of an RN that worked for me, a registered nurse. She worked for me delivering training and assessment in aged care. Once a year, every January when we were slow and we weren't delivering training, she'd go work in an aged care facility for a month. And every year she would do that, and that's how she kept her currency within her industry. And you should be conducting annual performance reviews to identify that they've met the PD requirements. Okay, so I'm just going to have a look now at the professional development plan. So we have a PD plan. Now, if I came out and did a mock audit with you, I would have done a PD plan like this with you, and we would have completed one of these. This should be completed on an annual basis. You should be completing a PD plan every year. So you should put the name of the trainer, the period of the plan. So once a year you should be doing that. What they should be doing. So I've put here some examples. So they've attended a minimum of 2 vet-based webinars. So this should be kept in here all the time. They should always do a webinar or a conference or a workshop or something like that. So a vet-based webinar or workshop. They could also do that as well. Or a vet conference. I've got the workshop there. Okay. The proposed date of when they're going to do that and when it will be completed by. So they should have that in there. Any networking activities, so that they've joined a network. So if they've already joined one, you don't need to keep this in here. That's only if they're not part of a network yet. Or it could be renew their network registration. So that might be on an annual basis, you're making sure that they're renewing it. That they attend at least 2 networking meetings. So the networking meeting could be going to a conference. You could be networking while you're at a conference. So attending the cocktail function of the conference, you could be doing that. That's a networking meeting. They should also register for newsletters. We've still got Industry Skills Council here because we haven't got any of the new SSOs listed yet, the websites, but they should be getting updates from the SSOs as well, which is what replaced the ISCs. They should be registering on training.gov.au to receive updates. Now, if they've already done that previously, they shouldn't be doing it in the following year. So you should be updating that. And then they should sign that, and they're stating that they agree that they'll complete that in the next 12 months. And you should get a manager to sign that off, and that should be placed into their file. Then when they've completed those PD activities, you should fill in this professional development schedule. So you put in their name, what is their job, what's their key responsibilities, what activity did they complete, when did they complete it, what was the outcome of the activity, what did they learn, how long was that? So it might have been a 2-day conference that they attended, the Vivacity conference, for example. They could have attended for 2 days, and reflecting on the impact of their performance of what they learned from that conference. So at our conference, you're going to be learning about compliance, continuous improvement, training and assessment, marketing, business development, sales, marketing on social media, things like that. So you'd be reflecting on what did you learn and what did you implement into your organisation from what you learned. How did you change your training and assessment from what you learned at that conference? This really is an important part of the professional development, that they're actually reflecting back on what did they learn and what did they implement into their training and assessment to improve the training and assessment. And that's the key part. It's well and good going off to a conference or doing a workshop. It's that reflection that is the important part. How are they going to implement that within their training and assessment? How are they going to improve their training and assessment based on what they learned from attending those PDs? So, and that is the key with the PD. It's not, don't just attend it, actually reflect on it and how you're going to improve your practices based on what you learned. And that's the whole point of doing PD in the first place, is how are you going to improve your practices based on that PD, as I said. It's not well and good just going off and doing it. Okay, so now we're looking at standards 1.17 to 1.20. These are individuals working under the supervision of a trainer. So this is where the RTO has trainers and that might be delivering training underneath the supervision of a trainer assessor, and you should have supervision arrangements in place. So we're going to go through each one of these. So 1.17 is under supervision. So these are, if you engage anybody in your RTO who is not a trainer assessor, i.e. they don't hold the TAE 40110 or 416, and they cannot determine an assessment outcome. They cannot do that. They don't hold the qual, so they cannot determine an assessment outcome. So, for example, it might be a supervisor in the workplace who might be marking off third-party reports or observations in the workplace, but they're not signing off on training and assessment. A trainer and assessor should come in and they use that evidence, that third-party evidence, the observations done in the workplace, to form part of the evidence, but it's not what signs off that unit. It forms part of the evidence for signing off the unit, but it's not solely and wholly the only evidence we're collecting to sign off that student under that unit of competency as deeming them competent. It might be guest speakers that you have in your training, so they're just coming along and speaking about their industry or something like that, but they're not doing any training and assessment. Or it might be assistant trainers, so people who are helping with their training, but they don't sign off an assessment. That's the important part, is they're not signing off an assessment. So you need to make sure you have in place, if you do have those requirements, so you have supervisors in the workplace, or you have trainers or guest speakers or things like that, that you have trainers and assessors in your RTO who are supervising them. So those supervising trainers are current trainers and assessors in your organisation who hold the skill set for assessment. They hold the vocational competency, so they hold the qualification that they'll be delivering. So these are your trainers and assessors who are supervising. So you must have someone in place who is supervising these people, and they must hold the Cert 4 training assessment, they must hold the vocational qualification, and they must have currency within their industry. So 1.19 is that the training and assessment complies. So all training and assessment delivered under supervision complies with standard one all over. So we have policies and procedures for that in the Q&C manual and in the trainers and assessors handbook for that. 1.20 is that you actually have policies and procedures in place for managing supervision. So we do in the Q&C manual, there are policies and procedures in place for managing supervision in the workplace, and that includes the level of supervision and how the RTO will manage that supervision, i.e. supervisors in the workplace. We're making some adjustments to this policy and procedure in the Q&C manual, and you'll see in the new version coming out, it's not that it was non-compliant, we're just tightening it up. We're tightening up those policies and procedures and just making it more usable, more user-friendly in the workplace, so you can actually follow it as a guide on how to supervise. We're going to give you instructions on how you're going to supervise your trainers and assessors or supervisors in the workplace or guest speakers or things like that. And what will be the conditions of that supervision? So how will you monitor? How will you ensure that a supervisor in the workplace is not signing off and not determining a competency outcome? So we're going to refine that a bit. And basically, it's just making sure that they don't do that. A trainer or assessor is doing that. They're talking to the supervisor. They're getting feedback from the supervisor. And the trainer or assessor is the one that is determining the outcome, not the supervisor. How the RTO will ensure that the evidence collected by people under supervision will be reviewed and signed off by a suitably qualified trainer and assessor, in particular, assessor, the whole the assessor skill set, and that the assessment outcomes will not be signed off by the supervisor or someone under supervision. Trainers and assessors who are supervising are accountable for training provided and the evidence collected. So it should be there, it is in the position description that all trainers and assessors are responsible for the outcomes and ensuring that they're keeping accurate records of the outcomes of that training and assessment. Okay, so that's the standards for this month. If you have any questions with regards to these standards, please do not hesitate to contact your CLO who can answer these questions. Also refer to the Q&C manual, so the Quality and Compliance Manual, where the policies and procedures are in there. Keep an eye out for the new forms. Go on to Unicorn because there's a couple of documents that have been uploaded there recently. You should be logging on to Unicorn whenever you get those updates from Unicorn that tells you that you have an updated form, and download that form and implement that form. And you should be minuting any new forms that come into place, like that staff matrix. You should be minuting that at your Q&C meeting that there is a new form, and how your strategy on how you're going to implement that form throughout your organisation. Okay, thank you very much for attending today's webinar. Please note that all the webinars are recorded for your convenience, and a copy will be emailed to you following the session. Highly recommend that you jump online and have a look at this webinar and all of the other webinars. All the webinars have now been uploaded to our YouTube channel, so you should be joining our YouTube channel, connecting with us on Google+. So you should be connecting with us on Google+, so that we can then share those webinars with you on YouTube, because they're all connected together. Thank you very much for attending today. Look forward to catching up with you next month. And next month we are reviewing, I'll just get back to that first slide. We'll be looking at standards 1.26, 1.27, 8.5 and 8.6. 2.6 and 2.7 is looking at, I think it's transition arrangements, is that one? So we'll be looking at that, and 8.5 and 8.6 is looking at all the other legislation that is there that you should also be complying with, because this is one set of legislation that we need to comply with, but there's things like WHS, working with disabilities, sexual harassment, all of that sort of stuff. We'll be covering all of those. What are all the other standards that you should have in place and you should be following within your organisation? Thank you very much for attending. Love having you here. So looking forward to having you at our conference. 6 weeks left to register. Or no, you've got to actually register before then, but 6 weeks until the conference. If you haven't registered, you need to get online now and register for that conference. If you recently read my ebook, you'll see I've got the ebook everywhere. If you missed it, I don't know how you missed it, you've got your head in the sand. Anyway, I've got an ebook that's just been released. The ebook is the top 5 mistakes that RTOs make. Highly recommend that you read it. In there is a discount coupon that you can use for registering for the conference. Highly recommend that you come along to our conference. Well, you already get a discount actually, so you don't need another discount. You get a discount because you're a member. You get over $200, I think it might be $250 off because you're a member. Yay! Because you're our very special members, so you get a discount already. So jump online, register for the conference. I'm so looking forward to seeing you there. We'll have one more webinar, so that'll be at the start of May before the conference. We'll have that one. I'll be pumping you hard then for registrations. But yeah, get online and register for the conference. Looking forward to catching up with you. Bye.